let's see if I can keep my thoughts from wandering too much. Michigan Snow Pony Renee had asked about homesteading and how that, how that happens, how people do that, how people can manage it on, just do it on whatever income, and how to make, how do you make money off of homesteading. I think for the most part, homesteading isn't going to make people rich or even sustainable, really, to be able to pay their taxes and insurance and buy things in any sort of timely way. Homesteading may help in other areas. After a while, I think it will save you money. But we didn't start out as homesteaders. That was not our goal when we moved out here. We had been living in a nice neighborhood, in a decent house, for 7 years. Homeowners Association. I will never live, Lord willing, please don't ever let me live in another place with the Homeowners Association or inside town limits that are so restrictive. We had a double lot. I mean, our house and the lot next to it was vacant. We owned both lots, and we were not able to do more than garden. And we got a letter, if grass ever got over 6 inches, we got a letter in our box letting us know that it's noticed and we need to go ahead and mow it. So we even hired the neighbor's son, which is not a bad thing, but we hired him to keep it mowed after we moved out while we were trying to sell the place after we moved here. Now, we moved here not to homestead, but our daughter, who was then in 9th grade, 15 years old, 14, 15, she wanted a horse. She's always wanted a horse. I've taken her, she's had lessons, she knew horses, she knew it was work. The place we took her to was wonderful. They housed the USC, that's University of South Carolina, equestrian team at that time. And they had all these horses, and they were able to do the lessons fairly cheap, but they didn't mess around. The lady told us, we're not Burger King, you cannot have it your way. And she wanted to know more about my daughter's size, because they didn't have any small horses, they had all thoroughbreds. Most people around here have quarter horses, so that was something that they were aware of. And that our daughter had to have the maturity to follow orders, because they were hard. They said, these are not toys, these aren't fun things. We had to go out there early, like almost an hour before the lessons, to go get the horse from wherever it was. We learned their charts, which horse was assigned to her for that lesson. We had to go get it, bring it in, clean it up, tack it. If there was anything wrong, which happened a couple of times, there was something wrong with the horse, we had to get somebody and say, look, is this okay to use this horse today with this? And those 2 times, nope, it wasn't. They had to reassign a horse, we had to put the horse back, get the other, because each horse had its own tack that fit it. You couldn't just grab whatever you like and put it on there. So she knew what was involved, and she still, bless her, she wanted a horse. And we wanted to do that for her, and we knew that our time was getting limited. We knew, soon she's going to be 18, she's going to graduate high school, she's going to go off to college, and Lord only knew what was going to happen then, and we would have missed that window of opportunity. Well, 7 years in the neighborhood, making those payments, and y'all will laugh at what our payments were, because even back then we were very frugal. We got a house that if one of us lost our jobs, we were both working at that time, if one of us lost our jobs, the other one could carry all the bills. So we did not max out what we could afford. So we ended up with a smaller house that we literally grew out of the day we moved into it. So even though we enjoyed our time there, it was not the best situation living-wise. But we were there for 7 years and paid a lot. For us, we considered a lot of money during that time, excluding down payment, excluding extra payments we sent in. We could have bought this place 3 times over. And my husband owned this place. We both had property that we had bought before we married. This is his. And it was paid for, like 1.4 something acres, long, narrow lot. And we said, okay, we're going to move out here. And he had a single wide, and so let's fix it up. He said no, he didn't want to live in the single wide again. That was his bachelor pad, and he just didn't want to do that. So I spent 6 months looking for a repo double wide for $30,000 back in 98, 99. I got laughed out of so many places. And finally I was at one place. He showed me 2 homes that would fit the minimum criteria that we wanted for out here. And I had already lined up $60,000 with a credit company, a mortgage company, that would do the mobile home without the land. So I didn't have to worry about, the land was paid for. Everything here was already paid for. And we didn't want to put this at jeopardy. We kind of saw how things were going, and my husband's work, it was almost every 6 months there was a big layoff or restructuring or merger with another company. It was stressful, and we went through that almost the entire time we lived at that house for 7 years. So we were like, we want to put ourselves in a situation where once the house is paid for, this will get paid off within 3 years. That's why we had the $30,000 thing on it, that we knew it can be paid off before our daughter went off to college, because we didn't have anything saved for her college, and we didn't want her to start out life in debt if she wanted to. At that time she wanted to go to vet school when she finished college, so we knew that we had years of debt to look forward to, and we didn't want her to start that way. So found two mobile homes, repos. This one was $40,000 and the other one was 36 something. And I just told the guy, either one, $30,000. And he laughed. Oh, he laughed. Just like everybody else. And instead of laughing me out, he said he owned all the new mobile homes on the lot. That was his lot. But these repos belonged to the bank. And he said, I'm going to let you talk to the lady. So he calls the woman that was over the repos and told her my offer, expecting her to laugh. And she took it on this one that was $40,000. It had been sitting there for 6 months. It had some damage from not being properly attached on the lot, having been moved, and they wanted it off their books. So, in a panic, I called my husband, because he hadn't even seen it, because they accepted my offer. I wasn't expecting them to accept it. So I call him. He was fortunately his office was nearby, and he came down and he looked at it. We were looking at another one that we had gotten them down to $32,500. And he kind of liked that one better. It was a little higher end. Mobile homes are like cars. You have a base model, and they have really thin walls and really, low end substandard type stuff that barely meets whatever the standards are for mobile homes. And then you got some that are hard to tell apart from houses. They use the same stuff, have real drywall, have 2x4s. This one has only 2x4s in the center walls, and exterior walls, the interior walls are 1.5x3s. So, didn't have proper framing around the doors. The doors were, really, but the layout was good. The bedrooms were identical, bathroom in the middle, so our daughter and son would have, one couldn't complain that the other one had bigger bedroom or any of that stuff. And it had a nice utility room, because we had cats then, but we knew maybe a dog. We knew some other stuff was going to happen. So, and the kitchen was much nicer than the house that we were living in. So, long story short, the people had approved us for $60,000. When I went in and told them, look, we found the mobile home. It's only $30,000. We needed to borrow a little bit more than $30,000 to get the septic tank and some other things done over here to make it move in. But in this county, you have to have it underpinned, and certain types of steps have to be at every door, things like that. And the girl I'd been talking to for 6 months wouldn't look at me. She brought in her manager, and he told me that the land had to be with this deal. For 6 months I've been talking to them. No, land's fine. You don't have to do that. We'll just have to get the mobile home appraised and just be on the mobile home. We have excellent credit, blah, 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 blah. Totally pulled the rug out from under my feet. Normally, when that kind of stuff happens with money, my husband loses it, I stay calm. This time, I lost it. He stayed calm. We went to our bank. He said, let's go across the street, go to our bank and see. So we applied for a personal loan for $40,000. That night, we had some friends over. I was friends with the wife. We didn't know her husband very well. And come to find out, he did second mortgages, and he told us that they'll approve us for $20,000. With our credit rating, $20,000's max. So I was thinking, oh gosh, I want to get this. So I call our bank Friday night, late, like 11 o'clock. I call our bank and say, look, we just put a loan in for a personal line of credit, but we were just told that, probably 20,000 is the max that we're going to get. And she's like, yeah, that's probably what, he's right. We're not going to approve for more than that. I said, so how else can we get money? And she says, well, I see your bank line or your overdraft protection is canceled. And I said, yeah, because the interest rate was like 20-something%. I just didn't want it on there. She said, did you know that they'll higher your interest rate, higher your allowed balance, the lower the interest rate? You didn't have to have the whole balance to have the lower interest rate. So I said, okay, let's put that through. So both loans go through at the same time. We didn't lie. We didn't try to hide. We found out later it shouldn't have happened. But we got two $20,000 loans. Paid $50 for one of them for the application fee. That was it. No appraisals. We saved thousands on getting this. We didn't use the whole $40,000. We got out here. And then it was a matter of getting this fence put up for a horse. A dog adopted us. A neighbor had rescued a dog from a junkyard, and my kids would be outside playing. We started homeschooling that same year. That was coming out here. The school system wasn't great where we were at, and it's even worse coming out this way. Heard all sorts of stories. And that year that I was doing the search for this is the year that Columbine, the shooting at Columbine, happened. And there was a horrible storm. Some people said it was a tornado that didn't completely touch down, but it really messed up the high school that my daughter was at. And schools ran late. The buses ran late. Parents were told not to show up, that didn't normally pick up their kids because things were going to be bad enough. And when my daughter finally got home, like at 6 o'clock that night, and normally she was home by 4, she was upset, extremely upset. The rumors were, all over the place. And one of the rumors was that the school that her little brother went to was worse hit than their school was. Nobody was injured at her school, but a lot of property damage. And she was really scared for her brother. And I learned that I could teach my kids. For a long time, I couldn't teach my kids. I could teach everybody else, their kids, adults. I taught an 80-year-old woman algebra. And I do believe I am a good teacher in most things. But my own kids, I didn't have patience. I knew my kids were brilliant. They were geniuses. And for them to have forgotten something that was taught to them the day before had me going nuts and in tears. But I learned, my trick was, I pretended they were other people's kids. They weren't as brilliant as mine. And that worked. And that year that my son was in 1st grade that year, and my daughter was in 9th, public schools, and I did a lot of homework with her. And she asked me to look into it. And I did, and I found out I could qualify and we could do the homeschooling thing. And when we were moving out here, we decided that along with moving here, trying to get debt-free, we would also do the homeschooling. So we did that. That is one of the best things we ever did with our children. I wish I'd known some things that because the whole mentality of schooling, because I was public schooled. I knew no other way. And I did a lot of peer teaching and worked in a tutoring lab at one time. So I understood, how to teach and the different things, and did a lot of research and a lot of reading on how kids learn. But homeschooling is really a misnomer. It's home educating. Every parent educates their kids. Every parent teaches. But it's not a school. It's a home. Don't set up classroom desk and do time, and from 8 to 9 you have English, and 9 to 10 you have math. And you do different things. And soon after we moved here, in the summer of '99, I was in a car wreck. And I was in whiplash bad. Most afternoons, by the lunchtime, I was hurting so bad I had to take a painkiller, and after that I was worthless. So I spent the mornings helping my son, who was really struggling with reading at that time, 2nd grade. That we ended up starting all over with him, and just did a program called Sing, Spell, Read and Write, I think. And that really helped. But I couldn't do much with my daughter except just keep her, you know, this is what you need to do for this year. Had it all set up and done before the school year started. And she decided she was just going to do history. For the first month of school, that's all she did. She didn't touch English or math because I wasn't able to help her with anything, really. And she really started grasping history. She's like, oh, so this is why this war happened, because of this thing that happened 50 years prior. And she said she really learned it so much better because it didn't become segmented. She was able to go through the whole book in its entirety at one time. She finished the whole book on her own in a month. So that kind of started opening my eyes to, you know, what is the best way to teach. And then that winter, we were able to pay off one of the loans. We're one of the few people, was it that winter or the winter after? I may have the time frame a little bit off. But we were able to sell off some stock. It was a stock option. We were told we were stupid and crazy to do it. And we sold it off just a few days before the dot-com bubble burst. Thank God. Normally I don't pay attention to that. Whatever my husband gets from his company, it's not here nor there for me. I don't really care. Because it doesn't mean anything until we actually cash it out, at whatever point we cash it out. But we were having 2 house payments, the one that I had before we married, and the house that we bought together. And then we had the 2 loans on this place, and we had more money going out every month than we had coming in. I wasn't working at that time, trying to homeschool our kids. I got some wonderful stories I'll share later about that stuff. Real eye-opening, things that I wish that I could take credit for. But they just were timed. They just were, to me, they were just miracles. But when he told me about the stock option, I said, sell it. We got to sell it. We got to sell it, and we got to get whatever money we can to get some of this debt off of us. We just can't do this every month. That little bit of cushion we had was fast disappearing, and we were still trying to sell our house that we had bought together. And we still had stuff over there not moved over here. Because it wasn't too far, and I moved a lot of stuff on my own before we moved here. Spent a month just moving little incidental stuff like I hope to do with this move that's coming up. But we sold it, and we're told how stupid we were for a couple of days, and then boom, the stock that went for $84 a share dropped to $4, and everyone was left flabbergasted. I mean, we were flabbergasted. We didn't know. We started the paperwork, and it's not like you can, with the option, it's not like we can say, okay, we're selling it today, and we lock in at today's price. We didn't understand any of that stuff. I still don't, really. So we started the paperwork saying we want to sell this option. We don't want to, put it into the 401k or wait for whatever. We just want to sell it now. And the paperwork went through like 2 days before the bubble burst. And we got it. And after taxes and everything, it was $16,000. So we paid off one of the 2 loans we had on this, and that made a big difference. That one carried a little bit higher interest rate. And then a few months later, we were able to sell the house. We literally walked away with $2,000. Living in that house for 7 years, we walked away with $2,000. Other people have done better. This is before the housing bubble broke. It just was not, if you, and every month we're spending $750 on the payment. I know that's a joke for a lot of people, but for us it was a good bit of money with one income. So getting rid of the payment, because every month that's up, it's like $1,500 every 2 months. It's like you lose. Gladly walk away, breaking even at that point. We would have come out better if we'd have sold it that first month we were out, than waiting 6 months later and I'm walking away with $2,000. So that happened, and then we got my house rented. Some family we knew through church, we rented it to them for several years, and that's another long story. It didn't end out too well until we finally sold the place. But we were here about 6 months when they started working on the fence and got the fence done, and then we found a horse, and got my daughter a horse and made her happy. Then we got one of the loans paid off with that stock option. And still, homesteading was not in our vocabulary. Started learning about volunteer simplicity, just trying to simplify our lives, trying to be less about stuff and more about people and events and not things. So, started that. Now, 16 years later, here we are, moving. I didn't think we'd move from here. It took us 3.5 years to pay off the debt on this place because of the horse. Horses are not cheap. Just monthly, you know, you're looking at minimum $100. If you're not boarding it somewhere, a minimum for yourself to pay for the feed and averaging out the vet visits, the farrier costs, and if it gets sick, even more. So it took us 6 months longer than we planned to get out of debt because we got the horse, and my daughter ended up getting a second horse. She worked for a lady, and the lady wasn't able to pay her, and the lady gave her a horse to pay off the debt. And it was Greenbroke. And for those that don't know what that means, it could be ridden, but only by someone who's very experienced with horses. And my daughter had to finish breaking that one. And she did it in a very gentle way. So, 16 years here. We get our first chickens from someone who had chickens that were just trying to find a home. We thought, okay, we don't have horses back here. We need something back here. We got a barn. Why not? And then the milk thing. My son is a milk drinker. He loves milk. I mean, he will, at one time, he would go through 3 gallons of his by himself in a week, easily. That was buying 3 gallons of more than 3 gallons, 4 to 6 gallons of milk a week. And he would just have a glass of milk every chance he got. And when he was about 12, we'd been here, he was 7 after we moved here, and that's how I keep track of how long we've been here, because we had his 7th birthday party on this deck, because it was all clay, because we put the septic system out here with the drain field, and it was all turned up, and it was all orange clay, and so we just put a pool out here and had the party inside and in the front of the house, and he turned 7 shortly after we moved in. So when he was about 12, he started putting on weight. From a skinny little dude, he started putting on weight because our diet wasn't all that good. But he started getting breasts. I mean, breasts, not just fat, not flabby pecs, breasts. And of course I noticed it right away. I said, that's not normal. There's something wrong there. So we started buying organic milk. Okay, that just kind of almost doubled our milk budget in a week. Within a month, he was just a chubby little kid, without breasts. That's how fast that changed, and how it opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that we were doing. And my health was kind of weird. The first 6 months we lived here, I had 4 respiratory infections. That means 4 different courses of antibiotics in that time period. And each time I was getting sicker and more susceptible each month. Come to find out there was a leak in our bathroom. It was carpeted. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Never have carpet in your bathroom. It came that way. I wouldn't have picked it. And there was black mold that was causing my respiratory symptoms. Pulled that stuff out, taken care of, fixed the leak, no more problems. Then I have to learn about recovery from taking antibiotics. So there's been an ongoing process of learning about food. And we got dairy goats because dairy, duh. They have cost us a lot of money. It's been a hard lesson. You see some of my goat videos, we lost half the herd that 2nd year. Parasites is still something that we're learning about, how to control parasites. We hope to have pasture rotation when we move. I hope to start producing our own meat birds. That's part of why I want the silkies, because they're really good breeders. I don't want to use an incubator. That's another story. So the whole homesteading thing came about in a very roundabout way for us. And now on this almost 1.5 acres here, our daughter has the first half with her husband and 2 kids, our grandkids, which has been great. Our grandkids have never been in daycare. It's either been me or their other grandmother taking care of them. For the short time they lived in Charleston, she was with them and took care of them. And then the other years it's been me. And I love it. I don't get any money from it. I get incredible stories that have made me laugh so hard I couldn't breathe. Moments of pure joy from them, and a lot of frustration. But it's been well worth it. And our son is now 23 years old. And last year he said that he wanted to move, he wanted his own place, but there was no room here for him. And he was basically waiting for his sister and brother-in-law to find a new place so he can buy their place and move in the front. And we talked about it, my husband and I, and we decided that we would go ahead and buy a bigger property. And we did a lot of searching, and that's another story that I'll get into in more detail. So we bought 20 acres last year. And that's in the video with the shipping containers and the garage and what we call the greenhouse and camper. So we're moving there. Hopefully we all are. Things kind of go back and forth. But our son's going to move with us into the new place, and then from there he's going to build or buy something to put onto his corner, and hopefully our daughter and son-in-law will take over the other corner. It's all a matter of timing and what ends up in the final decisions. But definitely it's going to be homesteading there. And again, my husband's company has gotten basically a hostile takeover that will take effect in January. So we don't know. I'm pretty sure they're not going to let him go, because he wins awards all the time for his work. That commendations, certificates, monetary. He just got another bonus, which is coming in very handy right now, for exemplary work on a project that people are just. And I live with this man, and I'm just going, he does all that stuff at work, and then he drives me nuts. But we don't know if he's going to have a job. And now we have more payments than we've ever had. He bought a tractor and said, well, if he loses his job, there's work there. He can take the tractor and do work. But we don't have a truck that will pull the tractor. Our son is now talking about he's going to buy a truck, trade in his car. It's like, okay, that can be a side job. Looking at things, there's concerns with the Safe Food Act. I don't sell our eggs or even give them away anymore, because the Safe Food Act could fine us $10,000 per sale. Now, you can look that up, you can argue. Don't bother arguing with me. I've looked into it. The only place that I know of that it actually got done was in California, and they didn't do it very long before they stopped, and now California's kind of done a flip-flop and made it easier for people to sell food from their homes. But basically, if I tick off the wrong people and I get reported for selling eggs, or the goat milk for that matter, raw milk, ooh, evil, they can fine me $10,000 per sale that they could verify. So if I sold to a family 6 times, that's $60,000. And I have no defense against that, because you have to have your food tested before you sell to anybody. Now, I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars or thousands, all depending on who you talk to and what's being checked, to sell maybe $400 worth of eggs and milk in a year, because we're not making that much in surplus and don't ever want to. But I will gladly sell someone a hen. And that's something I want to get into. I want to start hatching a bunch of chickens and selling 6 to 12-month-old hens that are proven to be layers. I'm not going to sell one that's kind of iffy or anything, and just sell them. I'm not going to get into pure breeds. We're just all these are just backyard hens, and just get into selling that to people. It's their pet. If they want to eat the eggs, that's their choice. And also start producing our own meat chickens. I want to get away from buying anything with all the stuff that's going on. So we're not homesteading so much as this is what we looked at and wanted to. But as we learn of what's happening to our food supply, what's happening to just our local economy, it just makes sense that you grow what you can on your own property. I'm hoping to have lots of orchard, lots of different trees, fruit and nut trees. Just watching them is so cool. Yeah. And have a garden. I don't have one this year. I didn't even plant my potatoes this year. Last year, at least I got that much done. But it's just a lot of things. And one of the things of not having a paying job that I go to daily, Monday through Friday or something, is I take care of family. I take care of my grandkids. I take my mom to many of her doctor's appointments. I've had my mom come and stay like a week or so at a time with us, just until she builds up her strength to go back home again and take care of herself, until she's weak again and comes back. And we've had my mother-in-law stay with us for a while when she had both her feet operated on this year, and put in a ramp at the front of the house. And we're definitely going to put a ramp at the new place because we like it. And we're getting up there, and maybe one day, hopefully not, we won't need a wheelchair. But that ramp, everyone uses the ramp. Like, yeah, that's way better than walking on the stairs. Even the kids, they think it's a lot better for several reasons. But homesteading just makes sense. I don't think we'll make an income off of it. I don't think we definitely won't get rich off of it. Our plan is to sell this place and pay off our debts as much as possible, and hopefully have enough left over to do some things at the new place. But at that point, just when you sit there and you price putting up a decent fence, we want to use these goat panels with our goats. We know we have deer out there. They can jump this thing like it wasn't there. These goats probably can too if they really wanted to think about it. They're really good jumpers. But they're content. They have no reason to go anywhere. Food, water. So, oh, there they are. The whole homesteading thing, I don't know anyone who's making money off of it that doesn't have at least one person having a full-time job doing something else. I can see way down the line maybe. You sit there and try to figure out how many chickens, egg-laying chickens, do I have to sell a month to pay our utility bills. And let's say I got $20 a chicken. That's a minimum of 10 chickens, at least, if I'm getting $20. I may be able to get more for a pure breed if I can say this is a Easter egg or Americana, or however you pronounce that. Maybe, I may be able to get 30. But you sit there and you try to figure this out, and that means 6 months to 12 months prior to that month, I got to be hatching those eggs. And they all, that whole saying, don't count your eggs until they're hatched. Even then, we hatched 7 this year. There's 3 out of those 7s because of predators. Things happen. They get sick. They drown. They get taken by predators. It's just, how do you budget for that kind of lifestyle? And it's going to be feast and famine. Some months I may be able to sell 30 of those chickens, and the next month nothing. So you have to pad your bank account, or your coffee can, or whatever it is that you use to cover those times. So I don't know how people do that without a regular income. You know, and I know some people do. At one time, my husband was paid only once a month, so we learned to budget everything so that we're not going to fall short at the end of each pay period. But anyway, I'm rambling now. But I think I've covered everything. We're somewhat homesteaders now, but we didn't really start out to become homesteaders. It just kind of was forced on us, and we kind of gradually eased into it. In some cases, or we're just dumped into it in others. So I'm hoping to start my own little chicken business. Now, I paid our local chicken lady $4 each for them, so $8 is invested in this. I got the cage for free. We've been using that. I don't remember paying for that. I paid $3 for the metal one. We already had that, and I think that's another $3 if I went out and bought it. No, $4 for the metal one, excuse me. And I'm going to change feeders to some homemade stuff later. But for now, this is right for those two little ones. But that's the beginning of my business. So you're watching a new entrepreneur here. And I think that's it. If you have some questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. And if you've listened to this whole thing, I apologize for how long I took. And I thank you for watching.